California has been trying for years to destroy Western civilization. Well, this is what it looks like. They finally did it. Primetime is calling for a federal takeover of California. When a state becomes this dangerous and the government becomes this reckless, where the lives of millions of American citizens are being destroyed, their homes obliterated, their infrastructure annihilated, look at what we're seeing. This is a war scene.
One of LA's wealthiest suburbs, in the grip of an inferno, raging and unremitting. Pacific Palisades is home to film stars and billionaires, but this is one of Mother Nature's terrifying levelers. People watch in disbelief, their community being ravaged. January isn't normally wildfire season, but these aren't ordinary conditions. Blazes fueled by the strongest winds here for decades.
This is surreal. This is unbelievable. I've never seen it like this. I grew up in the Palisades.
Are you worried about people being trapped in their homes?
Oh, absolutely. I've already watched most of my neighbors leave.
A chunk of land the size of San Francisco has been destroyed. Some of the most beautiful land in the world. Parts of Pacific Palisades look like Hiroshima after the atomic bomb.
Some of Hollywood's biggest stars have been caught up in the devastation of the Los Angeles wildfires. Many have watched as their homes burned and went up in flames. Hollywood Walk of Fame member Billy Crystal and his wife Janice have confirmed their home of nearly 5 decades has been destroyed. In a shared statement, the couple says, "Words cannot describe the enormity of the devastation we are witnessing and experiencing. We ache for our friends and neighbours who have also lost their homes and businesses in this tragedy." Emmy Award winner and comedian Eugene Levy evacuated the area, describing the smoke as very dark as he left. His home has been destroyed. Socialite Paris Hilton shared on social media that she's lost her Malibu home. "Heartbroken beyond words, sitting with my family, watching the news and seeing our home in Malibu burn to the ground on live TV is something no one should ever have to experience."
Thousands of Southern California residents have made harrowing escapes as devastating wildfires bear down on the Los Angeles area. Some fled by foot, some by car, and some by the grace of Good Samaritans. There are now 6 fast-moving wildfires raging around LA County, including the Pacific Palisades blaze and the Eaton Fire in Altadena. The 6th fire, called the Sunset Fire, broke out last night in the Hollywood Hills area. Officials say the fires have killed at least 5 people and have burned down nearly 2,000 homes and structures, including ones owned by celebrities Billy Crystal, Mandy Moore, and Paris Hilton.
I talked to a fireman once. This is one of the reasons that freaked me out. He goes, "Dude, one day," he goes, "it's just going to be the right wind and fire's going to start in the right place and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean and there's not a thing we can do about it." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, we just get lucky." He goes, "We get lucky with the wind." He goes, "But if the wind hits the wrong way, it's just going to burn straight through LA and there's not going to be a thing we can do about it."
A nightmare that no one can wake up from. That's what they're saying in LA.
As the fire absolutely raged, this is the view from the San Fernando Valley. This is what residents saw last night as mandatory evacuation orders were issued and folks in the Encino neighborhood south of Ventura Boulevard rushed to get out of their homes. The hills above Sherman Oaks, Encino, and Tarzana lit up with fire as that Palisades fire made its way to the ridge and began threatening homes on the other side again of Pacific Palisades. The aerial firefight we saw was intense. At one point, LA City Fire and assisting agencies had 10 water-dropping choppers and planes in the air, putting everything they had on this fire to stop it from moving into yet another densely packed residential area. Evacuation orders again were immediately issued, forcing thousands of people from their home. We saw them coming down Havenhurst, down Balboa, getting out of the area. Many of those folks this morning, including friends of ours, are staying in hotels and with family members. Evacuation centers have also been opened in the San Fernando Valley as the fire continues to spread. Now take a look at the Pacific Palisades side of the fire. Mandeville Canyon, the fire there also continuing to rage. And with only 11% containment this morning, this firefight is far from over. Now, yesterday, the folks who live in the hills in Encino, above, south of Ventura Boulevard, Encino Hills, Havenhurst, all of those streets right there, they had the fire burning right there on the ridge. But I want you to look at these pictures sent to us from Van Nuys. Hold one second. Take a look at those pictures sent to us from Van Nuys. This had folks 5 and 8 miles away from the actual ridge of the fire, worried that they too would have to evacuate. And a lot of folks in the San Fernando Valley have already been on edge. And one of the reasons is because of all those erroneous evacuation alerts they received. And yesterday, when they saw what we're looking at in those pictures right now, they worried they were going to have to get out, even though they were at least 8 miles from the ridge of the fire.
Even Morning Joe can't defend this. And they've defended everything. And I mean everything.
We don't know the exact causes for the complete failure of government to be able to protect these homes. I don't think we can say it's the smelt alone. We don't know what it is, but I do think it's going to be like Hurricane Katrina. I mean, the infrastructure has been slashed. It's hard to hear people say in one of the richest cities in the world that, we don't have enough water to protect people's homes.
We're witnessing the collapse of liberal society. Everything's on fire, falling apart at the same time because of stupidity, corruption, and radical priorities.
Just seen your report there, Martha. Really dramatic stuff. How are things where you are right now?
Terrifying for the people in this local area. I don't think that's an overstatement. It's a very long and scary night ahead for the people in this part of LA. You can see behind me one of these hills on fire. This was actually a community of temporary homes which have gone up, community after community here in flames. And I can't overstate also how much of a problem these winds are. Winds already 80 miles per hour. They're threatening to take my feet from under me. And they're expected to get even stronger in the coming hours, up to 100 miles per hour. And that's a problem because it means that these embers that you see, they may possibly spread and make another larger fire in these areas. So it is a very, very uncertain time, uncertain, scary hours ahead. 30,000 people have already been ordered to evacuate.
It's so big, it's so red. My thoughts and prayers are with everyone tonight. I'm really going to stop soon.
I have never seen flames from my house like this, ever. This is insanity.
Oh my gosh. That's so hot, honey!
This is absolutely the worst fire I've ever seen in my life. And just this morning, I woke up and I was really conscious of my mental state and my mental health because the last 3 days, I've seen such tragedy.
I can't reach anyone to see if my house is okay. And I just Googled it. And it said that it's destroyed an entire block. I don't want to say it on my street. So I don't know if my house is there.
Standing in the driveway getting ready to evacuate. We've got a lot of planes going over, dropping water, but
hey everyone, ready for that deep dive into those California wildfire accounts, the ones you requested?
Absolutely.
Great. So we're going deeper than the headlines today.
Definitely.
Really trying to get a feel for, how these fires impacted people.
The human impact.
Yeah, exactly. We're checking out this YouTube video.
Okay.
By Jason A.
Right.
The title's pretty dramatic. Something biblical happened days before the LA fires.
Wow. Catchy.
Yeah. Lots of firsthand accounts and some pretty intense visuals.
I bet. It's interesting how that video kicks off.
Yeah.
It paints this very vivid picture
of
Pacific Palisades, famously wealthy area.
Mm-hmm.
It's described as a war scene.
Whoa.
Even compared to Hiroshima.
After the bomb.
Yeah, after the atomic bomb.
Wow. Using imagery like that definitely makes you pay attention.
It does.
But it also kind of makes you wonder about the effect of
right.
It's a strong language.
Mm-hmm.
Does comparing a wildfire to a nuclear attack help us understand? Or does it make it harder to grasp what's really happening?
That's a good question. I think it speaks to the challenge of,
Yeah.
conveying the sheer scale of these fires. I mean, we hear about wildfires all the time.
Yeah.
But this video wants to shake us out of that.
Right.
That complacency. Make us see these events as something extraordinary.
And terrifying.
Definitely terrifying.
And they really hammer home the point about the size of these fires.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about an area the size of San Francisco being destroyed.
Jeez, a whole city gone.
I can't even imagine.
It's tough to wrap your head around, right? It really raises the question about our ability to adapt to this new reality of mega fires.
Yeah.
Are we really equipped to handle disasters this big?
Right. So we've got these massive fires, and on top of that, the video talks about the wind.
Oh, right, the wind.
Being a huge factor.
Yeah.
There's this fireman who says that, the fate of L.A.
All of LA.
Yeah, all of L.A. could depend on which way the wind blows.
That's chilling.
Sounds like.
It really highlights that unpredictability,
Yeah.
Makes wildfires so dangerous.
Right.
It's not just the flames themselves, it's how they can be driven by these powerful forces.
That are constantly shifting.
Exactly.
And the video captures that fear, that uncertainty so well. They talk about the San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
Miles away from the flames.
Yeah.
And people were panicking.
Right.
Erroneous evacuation alerts were going out.
Adding to the chaos.
Total chaos.
It's amazing how even those not in immediate danger were deeply affected. It's like the psychological impact.
Yeah.
This vulnerability that spreads way beyond the fire lines.
And speaking of feeling vulnerable, the video shows how even celebrities,
Oh, yeah.
with all their resources, weren't immune.
Right.
They list Billy Crystal, Eugene Levy, Paris Hilton, Mandy Moore, all suffering losses.
Wow. It's a reminder that these disasters don't discriminate. They can impact anyone.
Regardless of wealth or status.
Yeah. It makes you think about the limits of preparedness.
Yeah.
Even for the wealthy.
It's almost like a leveler in a way.
Mm.
And the video really focuses on the emotional side of these losses, like Paris Hilton watching her home burn on live TV.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine your personal tragedy broadcast like that?
Hard to fathom.
And then there's Billy Crystal. In the video, he can't even find the words
I saw that.
to describe what he'd seen.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how you'd react in that kind of situation. I mean, it's one thing to see it on the news, but to experience that loss firsthand.
It's got to be overwhelming. And that feeling overwhelmed comes up a lot in the video.
Yeah.
Especially when they talk about evacuations.
Right. The video paints this chaotic picture. People fleeing on foot, roads jammed, evacuation centers overflowing. And there's this one resident describes it as the worst fire they'd ever seen. Their voice just cracks with emotion.
It's heartbreaking. It really shows the human cost. Beyond just the physical damage,
Yeah.
it makes you question our evacuation procedures.
Mhm.
Are we doing enough to keep people safe?
That's a good question. And on top of those personal stories,
Yeah.
the video brings in some commentary
Oh.
about the government's response.
Okay.
They have this clip from Morning Joe,
Right.
and they're basically expressing disbelief
That
at the government's inability to protect homes.
even in a wealthy city like LA.
Right? Even in LA.
That's interesting. It reflects how people feel during these big disasters.
Yeah.
This questioning of, are the authorities doing enough?
Exactly. And they even compare it to Hurricane Katrina.
Wow.
Mentioning slashed infrastructure. This feeling that things are falling apart.
It's a powerful comparison.
Yeah.
It speaks to a deeper fear.
What's that?
The fear that these events
Mhm.
are a sign of bigger societal failure.
Like we can't cope with these increasingly frequent disasters.
Exact.
Heavy stuff to think about. But before we go too deep into that, let's bring it back to the ground level.
Yeah.
The video includes some on-the-ground reporting from the fires. The reporter talks about these powerful winds, almost knock him off his feet.
Really?
And embers are flying everywhere, starting new fires.
Potentially anywhere.
It's a crazy scene.
It sounds like it. It helps us understand what firefighters are up against. The shifting winds, the ember-driven fires, so hard to contain.
And when you add in that steep terrain.
Right. It's incredibly dangerous, demanding work.
Absolutely. And the reporter talks about the uncertainty, the fear in the air. Like no one knows if the worst is over or if it's just beginning. He seems really worried about the 30,000 people ordered to evacuate.
Yeah, his concern is obvious. It shows another layer of this whole thing.
What's that?
The challenge of communicating during a crisis, making sure people have accurate information so they can make good decisions about their safety.
Right, because in that situation, information can be life or death.
Exactly.
And the video shows how chaotic it can be for people trying to get out. There's this moment where a woman is filming from her car, and you can hear the fear in her voice. She's describing what's happening around her.
Chilling. That firsthand account really drives home the emotional toll. It's not just the physical danger, it's the trauma of seeing all that destruction, fearing for your life and the lives of those around you. Even if you escape, the scars can be deep. It's a stark reminder of how quickly things can change, how fragile our sense of security is, when faced with forces like that.
Absolutely.
And it makes you think about those who might not have the resources,
Right.
or support to cope with something like that.
Yeah. And that brings up a bigger point the video makes. This idea that these fires are becoming more frequent, more intense.
Yeah, this isn't just a California thing anymore. It's a
Right.
global trend we're seeing. And many experts think it's tied to climate change.
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. We hear a lot about climate change,
Yeah.
but how does it actually contribute to these mega fires?
Well, one key factor is rising temperatures.
Okay.
As the planet warms, vegetation dries out,
Hmm.
becomes more flammable.
I see.
Think of it like kindling.
Oh, okay.
The drier it is,
Yeah.
the easier it catches fire.
And burns faster.
Yeah.
So we're basically creating a tinderbox.
Unfortunately, yeah. And droughts make it worse.
Oh, right. Droughts are linked to climate change too, aren't they?
They are.
Okay.
So they dry out the soil even more.
And the plants
Like what?
makes everything more likely to ignite.
And once those fires get going,
Yeah.
they're a nightmare to put out.
Absolutely. Firefighters face really tough conditions.
Yeah.
Steep terrain makes it hard to get to the fire lines.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the winds.
Oh, right. Those unpredictable winds we talked about.
Exactly. They can change direction,
Yeah.
push the flames in unexpected ways.
It sounds terrifying.
It is. And the heat itself,
Oh, yeah.
incredibly intense.
I bet. Dangerous for the firefighters. Yeah. And it puts a strain on their equipment, too.
Wow. It's like a battle on multiple fronts, and then there's the smoke and ash.
Right.
Which the video mentions can travel for miles.
It can. The impact goes way beyond where the fire's actually burning.
Mm-hmm.
Air quality becomes dangerous for people far away.
Especially those with breathing problems.
Yeah.
So it's not just a local thing.
Yeah.
It affects whole regions and maybe even contributes to bigger health problems down the line.
Exactly. Brings us back to climate change and its consequences.
Are we doing enough, to reduce our impact
That's the question, isn't it?
and transition to cleaner energy?
It's a big one.
Yeah.
The video seems to imply that maybe we're not doing enough.
Right.
That these fires are a warning sign.
It's a possibility. I
Yeah.
mean, even if we can't say for sure that every wildfire is because of climate change,
Right.
the evidence suggests it's making them worse.
More frequent. More intense. So what can we do? I mean, does it even matter what we do as individuals?
Yeah.
It does. Every action we take matters.
Really?
Every choice we make.
Like what?
We can drive less, rely on fossil fuels less,
Mm-hmm.
support policies that promote renewable energy.
Okay.
Even think about the products we buy,
Oh, interesting.
the companies we support.
So it's about awareness and making changes
Yeah, being more conscious.
and maybe putting pressure on leaders to do something.
Absolutely.
You know, one thing that struck me about the video
Mm-hmm.
is how it goes beyond the typical news coverage.
Yeah,
It really gets into the human stories,
the emotional impact.
that feeling of helplessness.
Yeah, that's important.
It's like we can all grasp the concept of a wildfire,
Sure.
but to see it through someone's eyes who lost everything,
Mm-hmm.
it's different.
It hits harder.
It does.
It's about empathy,
Yeah.
connection.
Understanding
And that's one of the best things about this video. It humanizes the issue.
makes it more relatable.
Hopefully makes us want to do something.
Well said. The video also brings up the government's response.
Oh, yeah.
You know that clip from Morning Joe? They're basically saying even in a wealthy city like LA,
Right.
the government couldn't protect people.
It's a tough question
Yeah.
about responsibility.
And accountability.
What should the government be doing
Right.
to prepare for these things?
And are those expectations even realistic?
What events this big?
Yeah, it's hard. On one hand, you want to believe they'll be there for us.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, these events are so unpredictable.
Yeah.
Overwhelming.
Even for well-funded agencies.
Right. And then there's the question of personal responsibility.
How much should we rely on the government?
Yeah. How much should we be doing ourselves to prepare?
That's a question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah, especially as these extreme weather events become more common.
It's a conversation we need to have,
Yeah.
both personally and as a society.
And it's bigger than just wildfire preparedness.
It is. It's about climate change adaptation.
Resilience on a bigger scale. Exactly.
We can't just keep reacting to these things.
No, we have to be proactive.
Thinking long term.
Mitigating the risks.
Maybe even questioning some assumptions
Oh.
about how we live, how we interact with nature.
That's a crucial point. We often see ourselves as separate from nature,
Yeah.
but these events show us we're connected.
Yeah, our actions have consequences
We have to start living differently.
in a way that respects those connections.
Well said. This video makes us think about all that.
It's not just about the damage from these fires.
Right.
It's about the bigger questions they raise,
Our relationship with nature,
our responsibility to each other.
the future we're creating.
And I think one of the key takeaways
Yeah.
is that we can't be complacent.
We have to be engaged.
Be formed,
Yeah.
both individually and together.
To face these challenges.
Absolutely. Speaking of challenges,
Yeah.
I think it's time to dive into the technical side of this.
Okay.
We've talked about the emotional impact,
Uh-huh.
climate change.
But I'm curious about the science behind these fires.
Mhm.
What makes them so hard to control?
That's a great idea. Understanding how wildfires work
Mm-hmm.
can help us appreciate how complex firefighting is
Yeah.
and how to prevent them.
Okay, so let's switch gears.
All right.
Get into the nitty-gritty of wildfire science.
Sounds good.
We've got some articles lined up.
Okay.
They give some insight into how these fires spread,
Mm-hmm.
the role of weather,
Okay.
the techniques used to fight them.
Those articles offer a fascinating look
Yeah.
into the science of wildfire.
Okay.
One thing that stands out is weather patterns,
Mm-hmm.
specifically the Santa Ana winds.
Okay. I've heard of those.
Yeah,
But remind me why they're so important when it comes to wildfires.
sure. The Santa Ana winds, they're
Mhm.
powerful,
Yeah.
dry winds.
Okay.
They start in the Great Basin,
Mm-hmm.
blow west towards the California coast.
Okay.
And they're known for making wildfires much worse.
So it's not just the fires themselves.
It's not.
It's these winds that act like fuel.
They create hot, dry conditions that make everything ready to burn.
Right.
And they can blow embers miles ahead of the fire,
Starting new fires.
making containment almost impossible.
It feels like we're making things worse for ourselves.
Yeah.
Climate change dries everything out.
Hmm.
Then these winds come along.
And whip it into a frenzy.
It's a bad combination.
It is. And we're seeing it more and more.
That's scary.
It is. The articles also talk about human development
Oh, yeah.
in fire-prone areas.
Makes sense. More people living near wildland areas probably means more fires.
It does. As we build more homes,
Yeah.
infrastructure in those areas,
Mm-hmm.
we're increasing the
Interface.
between us and the vegetation.
I see.
Creates more chances for fires to start
Assuming.
downed power lines,
Oh, right.
equipment smirks,
Yeah.
even just carelessness.
It seems like this is bigger than just wildfires.
Yeah, it's about how we manage our relationship with nature.
That's a good point. So what can we do?
Yeah.
The articles talk about things like prescribed burns
Right.
and defensible space.
Yeah, can you explain those?
I can try.
Okay.
Prescribed burns are fires that are intentionally set,
By experts.
yeah, by land managers,
Right.
to reduce the amount of fuel for wildfires.
Like a controlled burn.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's mimicking natural fire cycles.
So it's fighting fire with fire?
Kind of, yeah.
Interesting.
By reducing that buildup of vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
prescribed burns can help prevent bigger fires.
I see.
And what about defensible space?
Oh, yeah. What's that?
Defensible space means changing the area around your house
Okay.
to make it less vulnerable
Less vulnerable to...
to wildfire.
Oh, to wildfire.
Things
So-
like clearing brush,
Mm.
trees around your house,
Okay.
using fire-resistant materials,
Mm-hmm.
keeping your landscaping tidy.
So it's about protecting your own property.
Right, and reducing the overall risk.
And those individual actions add up
They do.
if everyone does it.
In a fire-prone area.
Yeah, it can make a big difference.
So it's about community effort.
Absolutely.
You know what's really striking about this whole deep dive?
Yeah.
Is the urgency it reveals.
Mm.
It's not just about these California fires.
No, it's a bigger pattern.
Of increasing risk.
Vulnerability.
We're seeing climate change play out in real time.
We are.
Wildfires are just one part of that.
One piece of the puzzle.
It's a wake-up call.
To rethink our relationship with nature.
Yeah.
Do something to reduce the risk.
It feels like we're past the point of if.
Right.
We're at the point of how.
How do we adapt?
Yeah. How do we prepare for a future where these events are more common?
More intense.
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
We do. And there are no easy answers.
Yeah.
But the first step is acknowledging the problem,
Mm-hmm.
how complex it is.
And how everything is connected.
Our actions have consequences.
We're not dealing with isolated events.
No.
It's systemic.
A systemic issue that needs a systemic response.
What does that mean?
It means we need to change things on multiple levels.
Like individual action.
Yeah.
Collective action.
Policy changes.
We need to be proactive.
Innovative.
Challenge our assumptions.
About how we live.
So we treat the environment.
I think what I'm taking away from this
Mm-hmm.
is a feeling of urgency, but also empowerment.
Yeah, I feel that too.
We're facing big challenges.
But we have the knowledge to deal with them.
The question is, will we use it?
Will we make those changes
Mm.
to build a better future?
That's a question for all of us.
It is.
As you keep learning about this,
Yeah.
think about this. What role can you play
What can you do to help, even if it's small?
to make a more sustainable world?
Those are great questions to think about.
They are.
They really capture the spirit of this whole deep dive.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning information.
No.
It's about using that information.
Inspire action.
Make better choices.
Become agents of change.
Well said. That's a great point to wrap things up on.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
It's been a pleasure.
into the world of wildfires.
Yeah.
We talked about the emotional impact,
It's a science.
climate change.
Our responsibility.
It's been thought-provoking.
It has.
We hope you've learned something
Gained a deeper understanding.
of this complex issue.
Absolutely.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
we hope you've been inspired.
To take action.
Learn more.
Be part of the solution.
Because ultimately,
Yeah.
the future depends on what we do today.
Oh, well said. Every step we take matters.
Every choice we make.
It all adds up.
The future isn't set in stone
We create it together.
through our actions.
Our choices. Those articles offer a fascinating look,
Yeah.
into the science of wildfire.
Yeah.
One thing that really jumps out is weather patterns, specifically something called the Santa Ana winds.
Okay, I've heard of those,
Yeah.
but remind me why they're so important when it comes to wildfires.
Sure. So the Santa Ana winds, they're these powerful dry winds that originate in the Great Basin and blow west towards the California coast.
Okay.
They're notorious for fanning the flames of wildfires,
Oh, wow.
making them incredibly difficult to control.
So it's not just the fires themselves.
Right.
It's these winds that act like,
Like a force multiplier.
yeah.
They create these hot, dry conditions
Mhm.
that essentially prime the landscape for burning.
Oh, wow.
They can also drive embers.
Embers.
Yeah, burning embers.
Okay.
Miles ahead of the main fire front.
Really?
Igniting new spot fires.
Jeez.
Making containment a real challenge.
So we've got climate change, drying everything out.
Mm-hmm.
Then these powerful winds come along.
Just make things so much worse.
Yeah, it's like we're stacking the deck against ourselves.
It is a complex interplay of factors.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a trend we're seeing more and more.
That's scary.
The articles also delve into the impact of human development, in fire-prone areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. More people living closer to those areas probably means more fires starting.
Exactly. As we build homes and infrastructure further into those areas,
Yeah.
we're increasing that interface.
The interface.
Yeah, between human development
Okay.
and wildland vegetation.
So more opportunities for fires to start.
Right. Whether it's from downed power lines,
Oh, yeah.
equipment sparks,
Mhm.
or even just careless human behavior.
It seems like we're not just talking about wildfires anymore.
Right. It's bigger than that.
It's about how we're living.
Our relationship with the natural environment.
Yeah. And how we manage that.
That's a crucial point.
So what can we do about it? The articles mention things like prescribed burns
Yes.
and creating defensible space around homes.
Right. Can you explain those a bit?
Well, prescribed burns are,
Mhm.
they're controlled fires,
Like
intentionally set by land managers. Reduce the amount of fuel
fuel for.
for wildfires.
Oh, I see.
It's a way of mimicking those natural fire cycles.
So it's like fighting fire with fire.
In a way, yes.
Interesting.
By reducing the buildup of that flammable vegetation.
All right.
Prescribed burns can help prevent those larger, more destructive wildfires.
Makes sense.
And then defensible space.
Yeah. What about that?
That means modifying the area around your home
Okay.
to make it less vulnerable to wildfire.
Like how?
Things like clearing brush,
Uh-huh.
trees within a certain distance of your house,
Okay.
using fire-resistant building material,
Oh, yeah.
and maintaining your landscaping.
To reduce fire risk.
Right, so it's about taking responsibility,
Yeah.
protecting your property.
And those individual actions, they can have a collective impact.
They can.
If everyone in a fire-prone community takes those steps,
Yeah.
it can really reduce the risk of a wildfire spreading.
From house to house.
Exactly.
You know what's really striking about this whole conversation?
What's that?
Is the sense of urgency.
Mm.
It's not just
Mm.
about these California wildfires.
No, it's much bigger than that.
It's about a larger pattern.
Of increasing risk.
Vulnerability.
We're seeing climate change play out in real time.
And wildfires are just one consequence of that.
A wake-up call.
To rethink how we live.
How we interact with nature.
Do something to mitigate the risks. It feels like we're past the point of if.
We are.
We're at the point of how
do you adapt?
How do we prepare for a future where these events are more common,
More intense.
more destructive?
Those are the questions we need to be asking.
Absolutely. And
But-
while there are no easy answers,
No, there aren't.
I think the first step is acknowledging the complexity,
Right.
the interconnectedness of
Your
everything.
actions have consequences.
We're not dealing with isolated events.
No, this is systemic.
It requires a systemic response.
Exactly.
And that response involves individual action.
Yes.
Collective action.
Policy changes.
We need to be proactive,
Innovative.
willing to challenge our assumptions,
About how we live.
how we interact with the environment.
I think what I'm taking away from this whole deep dive
Yeah,
is a sense of urgency,
definitely.
but also a sense of empowerment.
I feel that too.
We're facing serious challenges,
We are.
but we have the knowledge to address them.
The question is, will we use it
Will we make the changes we need to make?
to create a more resilient future?
That's the question each of us has to answer.
And as we all continue to learn about this issue,
Yeah.
I think it's important to consider
Mhm.
what role can we play?
What actions can we take
Even small actions.
to make a more sustainable world?
I think those are some really powerful questions to ponder.
They are.
And they really encapsulate the spirit of this whole deep dive.
Yeah, it's about more than just absorbing information
It's about using that information to inspire action,
to make informed choices.
to become agents of change.
Well said.
That's a fantastic note to end on.
It is.
Thanks so much for joining us
Of course.
on this deep dive into the world of wildfires.
It's been a pleasure.
We've covered a lot of ground,
We have.
from the emotional impact to the science,
To the role of climate change.
our responsibility to the planet.
Yeah. A really thought-provoking conversation
Hopefully you've gained a deeper understanding.
of this complex issue.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
we hope you're inspired to learn more,
To take action.
to be part of the solution.
Because the future depends on what we do today.
Well said.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.